You've probably heard a parent or a grandparent talk about a kid, and they'll say something just like this. And look, it's almost always meant as this huge compliment, right? It paints a picture of a child who's just cooperative, no trouble, no drama. And, on the surface, that sounds absolutely perfect. Okay, so let's really dig into this, because modern psychology has a totally fascinating and way more complex take on it. What if being easy isn't just about personality? What if it's something else entirely? See, here's the idea we're going to explore today. The thought that being an easy child is often a learned survival strategy. It's really an adaptation to their environment, a way of coping, not necessarily who they were born to be. And this adaptation, it doesn't just look one way. It actually shows up in a few pretty distinct patterns. So for this first part of our explainer, we're going to walk through 5 of these hidden behavioral patterns that these so-called easy children develop. Let's jump into the first one.
All right, pattern 1. This is all about having a kind of radar, a heightened sensitivity to everything that's going on around them.
So think about it like this. If a child senses any stress or tension at home, maybe parents are arguing or there's financial stress, they very quickly learn to become cooperative and low demand. Their whole goal, subconsciously, is to just not add any more fuel to the fire. It's a pretty clever strategy to keep things stable. And this is where it gets really interesting, because you can see exactly how that childhood skill turns into an adult habit. The kid who learned to be cooperative to keep the peace, they grow into an adult who walks into a room and without even thinking about it, just automatically scans the situation to figure out the right way to act to make sure everyone stays comfortable. So let's move on to the second pattern. This one is all about what happens to those big feelings that, a more difficult kid might just let out. So instead of throwing a tantrum or yelling about being frustrated, the easy child learns to just keep it all inside. They'll tell themselves things like, it's not a big deal, or other people have it worse. And to everyone on the outside, wow, it looks like incredible maturity. But what's really happening is emotional self-suppression. And you can just draw a straight line from childhood to adulthood here. The kid on the left, who's constantly telling themselves it's no big deal, becomes the adult on the right who genuinely has a hard time even identifying what they're feeling. They've had a lifetime of practice at hiding their emotions, even from themselves. And that self-suppression, well, it leads directly to our third pattern. Because if you don't show your needs and you solve all your problems quietly, you learn to rely on one person, and one person only, yourself. Now, being independent, that's a great trait. But this is something else entirely. This is hyper-independence. These kids, they stop asking for help really early on because they just don't want to be a burden. And here's the key. Over time, asking for support actually starts to feel weird, unnatural, maybe even like a sign of weakness. So, that kid who got really good at handling everything on their own, they often become the adult who finds it incredibly difficult to trust or depend on other people. And this can make forming deep, close relationships a real challenge, because a true partnership requires vulnerability, the very thing they taught themselves to avoid at all costs.
But why? Why go through all this trouble to be so self-reliant and quiet? Well, the fourth pattern gets right to the heart of the motivation. It's all about the basic human need for love and approval.
Look, kids are smart. They figure out what works. If being quiet and helpful and good gets them praise or even just keeps the peace, they quickly make the connection. This is how you earn love. This is how you get acceptance. And the fallout from this is huge. The child who learns that their value is tied to being good very often grows up to be an adult people pleaser. They might live in constant fear of conflict or of disappointing people, because deep down, that feels like it risks losing the love and acceptance they worked so hard to get.
And all of this kind of builds up to our fifth and final pattern, which is really the culmination of all the others we've talked about.
Easy children just don't demand attention, even when they might desperately need it. And over the years, they get so skilled at pushing their own needs down, at minimizing them, that they might not even be able to recognize them anymore. They are so good at being fine that nobody, not even themselves, thinks to check any deeper.
And here is the real kicker, the total paradox of it all. The very strategy that was designed to make them easy to love, being totally low maintenance, can lead them to feel deeply unseen and misunderstood as adults. Why? Because they never learned how to show anyone what they truly need. So, when you stack all 5 of those patterns up, you can see this really clear pathway from a childhood adaptation to some very real adult challenges. But there's another side to this story. And this is really important. It's not all bad, not by a long shot. this same adaptation can build some absolutely incredible strengths. These folks are often deeply empathetic, incredibly responsible, and they tend to have amazing emotional control. The trick is just to understand both sides of the coin.
Okay, so this brings us to our final and maybe most important takeaway from this whole explainer. It's a powerful idea that kind of reframes this entire conversation. So it all comes down to this. The goal isn't to raise a kid who's perfectly easy and never causes any problems. The real goal is to create a space where a child feels safe enough to be difficult sometimes, to have needs, to show their frustration, and to know without a doubt that they'll still be loved.
And that's really the question to leave you with, isn't it? Whether we're thinking about our own kids, our friends, or maybe even ourselves, how do we build a world where our real, sometimes messy, authentic needs can actually be seen and heard? Because that's what real connection is all about.